world, this is Nicholas Montez here, and welcome to the Teenage Movie Critic channel where I talk about movies. And today, we're going to be doing an MCU ranking with all 31 MCU films. I know that said 4, but whatever. With the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, we now have 31 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so I'm going to stop and rank all 31 of them. So let's go ahead and get started. So obviously, Eternals is the worst film in the MCU for me. I mean, it really just tries to make every single character the main character, and the story itself just kinda is so clunky, and even the villain doesn't even make it better. So it just fails for the villains. When it comes to the cinematography and the action sequences and certain characters, there's plenty of, I think there's some stuff to like, but it's not really memorable where you're gonna go back and rewatch it. So for me, easily comes in last place. Now this is kind of in the same ballpark, except this movie's actually a little bit more rewatchable, where it has actors you like, it has the world you like. When it comes to the actual story with the villains and everything, and the humor just does not work. The special effects and the action sequences, they're all still up to tier, but they're not. It's not a great story, not a great movie. Now for me, this is like a difficult film to really fathom on because it just kind of deals with so much. It starts out with this Asgardian and Frost Giant war, then Thor is about to become king of Asgard, but then it gets interrupted by Frost Giants breaking into the weapons vault. And Thor is just so mighty that he wants to go to Jotunheim to wage war on Frost Giants because they didn't steal anything, because he wants to know why. And then he gets banished to Earth, and then basically it's just like a fish out of water drama or something like that. And it's just, the whole movie is just kind of weird. It mostly spends its time on Earth than does on Asgard. And overall, it just did not do justice to what this film, though. I will say this, though. I'm excited for a Thor horror movie, and I want to see what that's going to be like. Now, Iron Man 2 is just a film that I have learned to enjoy over the years. The big problem with it is that it's just a film that has way too many plot lines, has a lot of cool action, and the villains are ass. That's basically what it is. And it also doesn't have the action is great when it happens, but there's not a lot of it, which kind of is one of the big issues with the first film, where it really just has 3 main action sequences. But overall, the film is enjoyable, and it's at least better than the first 3. Now, I know a ton of you absolutely love Shang-Chi and think it's one of the greatest MCU films of all time. For me, I was just not impressed with it. Now, to be clear, the best things about this movie are, of course, the characters and the action. This might have some of the best choreographed action scenes in the entire MCU. And some of the characters' stuff I thought were likable. I thought some of the characters' stories, the way they were set up, they were great. The way they were executed, though, just didn't feel great to me. And the fact that you had this whole third act leading up to fighting demon dwellers and dragons and all that great stuff, it's like we could have gotten like a personal fight between a father and son. The Mandarin is a great villain, but the way he just dies by a demon dweller just does not work for me. So I feel like they could have found another way, but I feel like that this was the way that they could have done it. I don't know. I go back and forth with this idea all the time in my head. Now this is a film that I feel like I've actually have grown on, because as time has passed on, I'm like, oh yeah, the humor in the film is just ass. It's not exactly as funny as Thor Ragnarok. But if I'm being honest, as time has passed on and I watch it with the action and stuff, when it gets to that lower half of the film, I'm gonna say I that's where the strong points of the film will go. When it gets into the stuff with Jane Foster, I thought was great. When it comes to all the amazing action that happens and all the cool fights, that's great. Obviously, the humor I can't stand, and some of the other, the way they handled Zeus was ass. But whenever I rewatch it, I'm like, I want to see more of this because it just goes too quickly and it ends too quickly, and I'm like, I want to see more of this. And so it was kind of disappointing for me, but it's still lower at the list, but I still do kind of enjoy it. Now, this is a film that kind of has a lot of different issues where it tries to do so much and it just kind of fails at that. Where, the character of Ultron, pretty cool. All the action sequences that they did in this film were amazing. And then, of course, the introduction of Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision I thought were all great. And overall, it did some interesting stuff while at the same time kind of doing a little too much. Now, while not exactly as good as the first Guardians of the Galaxy, I still think that this film accomplishes what it's supposed to in basically capturing that soundtrack, that tone, and basically the vibe of a Guardians of the Galaxy film that I thought was great. And of course, you got, I think the best characters of the film are Rocket, Yondu, and Groot. All of them are great. Baby Groot is adorable. The humor in the film works sometimes. It doesn't work when characters are being tortured. The plotline of Ego killing all his children to create the perfect celestial being just kind of seems like a very dark plotline for a film. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. It's not the best MCU film, but it is definitely a film that is enjoyable to watch. Now, Iron Man 3 I thought was a great sequel after the Avengers. We're going to see Tony Stark dealing with PTSD and kind of doing some action outside of this Iron Man suit, where he uses ornaments as bombs and he blows up guys, and he gets straight to the mission with tracking down the bad guy. That's awesome. The kid that he interacts with in the film is great, and then when you get to the third act where you have all the army of Iron Man suits going against these extremist soldiers, it's all great, so I love that. The big problem here is the villains. It just feels a lot similar to Syndrome. But besides that, I really overall liked the movie and it was enjoyable enough. Now, Captain Marvel, it took me a while to actually grow on this film, and I definitely say this is definitely a good movie. It has a great X-Files vibe. It has this story that I thought made sense when it goes back in time, and then, the way that it has this 90s feel to it, very feels 90s. It has a very 90s feel to it. And even the characters of Talos and the Skrulls, and seeing a de-aged, less cynical Nick Fury, I thought that was kind of great. Carol Danvers' character of Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers of Brie Larson, was great. And then all the other characters were just kind of weird and wacky. But overall, I'm excited for it, and I'm a little bit excited for Captain Marvel 2: The Marvels from the poster we got. Now, Spider-Man Far From Home is a good MCU film. When it comes to being a good Spider-Man movie, I don't think it works. Mainly because it just tries... I never understand the plot line that Tony Stark left his glasses to a dead teenage boy. Why would you do that? This kid has no experience with war and all this stuff. Why would you plan this? What is the whole reason for that? And then you give it to Mysterio, who is this dangerous man, and then he plans to create all these dangerous Avengers threats. But what happens when real threats arrive, like Kang the Conqueror, or even the multiversal Sinister Six? What are you going to do when they actually come? So it's very weird in the way all that stuff happens. But overall, the action, I think it's definitely increased. You get to see Spider-Man swinging all around everywhere, and all the choreography through that was great, even though it does look a lot like CGI. The stuff with Ned and MJ, pretty cool. It is very funny, though it kind of goes a little bit too much into humor. And then, of course, I think the way they kind of elevated Peter Parker's character arc, where he kind of knows more of what he's doing and kind of knows how to save people and become that hero of responsibility. I just really like that arc. Besides that, the film does have some issues, but I still do very much enjoy it. Now, Doctor Strange 2, I liked it at first, and I still do, but as time has passed on, there's just issues with this film that I have. Of course, all the multiverse action and all of the way Doctor Strange fights, all of those fights are cool. The music note fight was awesome. And seeing the Illuminati for the first time on screen, kind of a waste because all of them just got killed, besides Mordo. And the big problem that I have with it is the way they developed this story for Wanda, because the whole story of WandaVision was dealing with the grief of Vision, and then this movie is dealing with the grief of her kids. And so I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but why would you go to another universe that just has her kids and not Vision? Like, is Vision just out of the picture now? Like, you do not, like, I understand you dealt with her grief with him, but is he not part of your life anymore? Like, what? Besides that, it is a good movie, and also we could have gone way more multiverse. Now, this is another, as it's the newest MCU film in the MCU, I know it's a little bit low. It's just because other films tend to, be a little bit higher. But for me, this is my favorite. This is definitely one of the better films in the MCU for me. Personally, I love the way they introduced the world of the quantum realm. The way they introduced our big bad Thanos villain level threat character and Kang the Conqueror. And then, of course, just kind of seeing all these different characters and the way it's kind of wacky and all these Star Wars type stuff and all that great stuff. However, those are the big standouts. Those are kind of like the main things you like about the film. When it comes to the actual Ant-Man stuff, it doesn't really work. When they're shrinking down, it doesn't look as cool as you'd expect. All the action is cool. The way they did MODOK's character was kind of weird, and the way that they don't really have certain character arcs for anybody, so it kind of feels bland and flat, but overall, it was a good movie, though it is my least favorite Ant-Man film. Now, Ant-Man and the Wasp was another film that I liked, and I think the reason why I put it above Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is because I feel like that it was back in that tone of the Ant-Man film, so it's kind of better. Though I would say Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, the stuff in that film worked a little bit better in this movie. Worked a little bit better in that film, but this movie definitely works a little bit better. It was a nice little break after Infinity War. It wasn't trying to be the next big MCU film. It was just trying to get this MacGuffin and trying to save Janet from the quantum realm. And, it was a nice little film. And, seeing Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp for this time, seeing all the cool action sequences play out, and then, of course, seeing Hannah John Kamen as Ghost was great. Overall, it offered some nice, fun antics for the whole family. Then we got Black Widow. So now, I would definitely say I've watched this film so many times. I actually really like this movie on rewatch. The fights are great. It's very enjoyable with Yelena and Natasha. Red Guardian is such a fun character. I love Milena. And then, of course, even though it does get big CGI fights in the end, when you have this flying headquarters crashing down and they're like zooming down, they're like flying down like there's nothing. It does feel like a Fast and Furious film a little bit when characters are surviving things they shouldn't be. So overall, I still like the film. The way they handle Taskmaster and all the villains in the film, ass. But overall, I really liked the movie. Now I know that I feel like this movie is maybe a little bit too high, but overall, I really like The Incredible Hulk. I know that it's kind of like at the earlier stage where they were trying to figure out what they were trying to do with this franchise. But if I'm being honest, I feel like that this movie has one of the best stories for this character, where the Hulk is going on a run from the government, and you have all these different characters trying to he's trying to cure himself, and it's a unique type of story where he doesn't want to be the Hulk, but then when a big threat arises, that's when he realizes he has to put all differences aside and use his powers to protect the greater good. And I think that's kind of a unique type of story. Plus, all of the Hulk action in the film is great. I thought Everett Ross and the Abomination, not Everett Ross, that's a different Ross. Thunderbolt Ross, William Hurt, R.I.P., and Abomination are pretty good villains in the film. All the Hulk action from the night one to the day one in broad daylight, and then the final battle with Hulk and Abomination in Harlem, all that stuff was great. So for me, I thought that this movie was overall pretty good. Now for me, I feel like what makes me so connected with the first Avenger, Captain America film, was that first off, it just tells like a rich origin story for this character, where he's just this good man who's also the perfect soldier, and he's just perfect for the whole country, and he knows how to lead stuff, and it's good and he knows the difference between good and bad, and it's just such a compelling arc as he's kind of impressing all these different people. And of course, Chris Evans nails the Captain America role. And then of course, you got Red Skull as the villain, you got Sebastian Stan as Bucky, you got the Howling Commandos, you got Haley Atwell as Peggy Carter, you got what's his name? Colonel Phillips, I forgot his name. Oh crap. Okay. I'm gonna look up Men in Black because I remember from that series. Tommy Lee Jones as Colonel Phillips. The whole cast of the film is great, and it just feels, I like how it has that 1940s feel to it. So overall, I really enjoyed Captain America: The First Avenger. Now, Doctor Strange is definitely a film I also have grown on, where it's like you go into this mystical world of the MCU where not everything makes sense. You're dealing with sorcery and magic, and it's so unique and different. But you're also telling such a great origin story for Doctor Strange, where he learns that it's not just about him, and that he uses these powers to protect the world and time, and he had to break some rules doing that. So I thought that was like a nice story, but also heartbreaking, especially after that car crash he had to go through. Now for me, this is just one of the most slickest in MCU films. I absolutely love it. I mean, Paul Rudd is perfect as Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Evangeline Lilly is great. Michael Douglas as Hank Pym is great. Michael Pena is great. T.I. or Tip, all the other characters great. It has a nice sense of humor. The action is pretty clever, and the heist element is also great. So overall, I just thought it had a nice sense of style, while at the same time not being such the biggest MCU film in the world. Now, obviously, this film has like a tragic production, as we dealt about 3 years ago, we dealt with the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman, and one of the big questions going into that was how are they going to continue the sequel to Black Panther in the world of Wakanda. And I feel like that with this film they were able to nail it, that they found a way to continue this story with the characters and do it in interesting ways, but not in interesting ways that compels to the first Black Panther movie, but compels in the way that they deal with their grief of losing their king. So, for example, Shuri doesn't believe in Bast and God and all that good stuff. Okoye loses her rank as Dora Milaje and her Wakandan armies and her status. Nakia is out raising her son in Haiti. Ramonda becomes queen of Wakanda again. M'Baku kind of becomes more of a character in the royal family. and all that good stuff. And it's a great film. Of course, you got Tecno Horta as Namor the Submariner, as the King of Talokan. And I thought that the world of Talokan was great, though we should have gotten more of it. It also just proves that he's an actual threat. And, Shuri's thing of becoming the next Black Panther was also great. The fact that T'Challa has a son now is great. All the action was great. The introduction of Riri Williams was great. Overall, it was a great film. Now, Spider-Man Homecoming, I rewatched it a couple times, and I gotta be honest, the film does get better on rewatch. And I feel like the best part about this movie is when you realize the thing that Spider-Man has to lose in this film to be that Spider-Man, where throughout the entire film, he's just wanted to become an Avenger, and he's offered it to become the newest Avenger of the MCU, to become the newest official member of the Avengers, Spider-Man, and he gets the Iron Spider suit, but he doesn't get it. He rejects it because he feels that there's got to be some heroes that need to protect the smaller stuff, and I honestly appreciated that. Of course, Michael Keaton as Vulture, great casting. The fact that the whole movie takes place in New York, and the people complain that the first two Spider-Man films don't take place in New York. The first film only has that one Washington, D.C. scene. The whole movie takes place in New York. Far From Home is a different story because it takes place in Europe. But Homecoming, it takes place in New York. Now, this is a film that I absolutely loved, where you take that element of Captain America in the first Avenger, where he's like, he knows the difference between good and bad, but now he's in a world where that's not how it is anymore, and people are going to switch on you, people are going to work for bad people because they see in the wrong things. And even then, the way they made it an action spectacle film, well, not action spectacle, but they made it into an action political thriller. It was great. The introduction of Falcon was great. Sharon Carter, all that good stuff was great to me, and I really liked it. Then we got Black Panther, and this is a film that I feel like the story of this film is so good. The story for this film is so good. Just the way that the way that they told the story of like that the Wakandans have been in hiding. They've used vibranium to protect their country, but they've never used it to protect other black people living outside of Wakanda. And that's an interesting story because it's like, why wouldn't they do this and use it? Not really that, but to protect the rest of the world. That's an interesting story. Besides that, I mean, the characters, the way they did it with, of course, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther is great. Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia. Letitia Wright as Shuri. Danai Gurira as Okoye. Angela Bassett as Ramonda. Martin Freeman as Everett Ross, who returns from Civil War. The whole cast is great, and then, of course, you got some great action scenes. Besides the final battle with Black Panther and Killmonger. And then, of course, it has a great villain in Killmonger, where he wants to do exactly what I just said. Why don't we help other black people, other black folk? So I thought this film was great, and it was definitely a global film that needs to be shared. Now, when this movie came out, I was like, well, not when it came out, when I first saw it, I was like, I'm just here for action, and the action's not exactly that impressive, but the movie has such great characters, where you care about them so much, you like them, it's funny, it has a great soundtrack, it's action-packed, and then even then, as you're watching the trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, you're like, I feel like, are we gonna cry during this movie? Because, like, I don't want to do that, and I'm like, we've been on these characters for literally 8 years, or something like that, for almost 10 years, and it's crazy that we're going to be getting the ending of this trilogy this year. Now, this is a film that I absolutely love, where Kevin Feige has looked at the first two Thor films and was like, these two Thor films are ass. I mean, first Thor film just had so many story issues. Then the second film had a very weird tone and story and villain problem. But let's bring in Taika Waititi and let's see what he can do with the writing and the script and the story and the tone. And I thought he handled that greatly, where you're able to do this very serious story of Hela invading Asgard and killing it, but at the same time, doing all this goofy stuff in Sakaar and saying you use this ship for orgies, and then you like bring in Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, bring in the Hulk, bring in Loki back, and also all the action sequences. You got Taika Waititi playing a character of Korg, one of the rock monsters, bringing in all these Sakaar warriors, and it's just a fun film. And then of course Cate Blanchett as Hela, the goddess of death, was also great. It's just a great film that I absolutely loved, and it was a great film. Now for me, what makes this film so beloved is that it's just a masterful film that established that opened up a world of possibilities where we never thought we would actually get a cinematic universe where all these different Marvel characters can interact with one universe together. And the fact that you get this film that started it all, it's great. But even then, Robert Downey Jr. is perfect as Tony Stark, Robert as Iron Man. The rest of the cast is great with Terrence Howard as James Rhodes, Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper Potts, Clark Gregg as Phil Coulson. The whole movie is just filled with great actors. It's great action, and it has an overall great story of this man who comes out of a cave and becomes a different person, and I honestly loved that. And then of course, the fact that it just sets up this whole universe, it's just a great film. Now this for me is just such a beloved film, and it's not just because you got all these different characters coming back and all the different Spider-Man coming back, but really it's a great Spider-Man story, where you get this set of multiverse and you get this sense of people that we have to help. That's the whole pinnacle of the movie, to get second chances to help people. And I love the way that Peter Parker just goes for it, and he even listens to when Green Goblin betrays him. And you start to realize like this whole trilogy was his origin story. The first film was kind of like building that. The second film was him kind of doing stuff on his own, and then the third film is him becoming a leader and leading the Spider-Man into curing these people and giving them a second chance to not die fighting Spider-Man. And even then, I started enjoying the story. You also can enjoy the cameos with the action, and even then, they even get second chances of redemption, where Andrew saves MJ, Toby saves Green Goblin, and then even then, all the action is great. The special effects are great. The story of Peter messing up Doctor Strange's spell, not the best. But the fact that we actually get a traditional Spider-Man story moving forward with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I'm so excited for that. It is sad that he forgets everybody, and the Ant-Man death is pretty great. Green Goblin is great. Overall, a great film. Now, when this movie came out, I think what makes this movie so great, what makes it so iconic, is that you get to see all these different characters from all these different franchises come together in one film and team up to stop this big, gigantic threat, a day unlike any other, and it's great. Of course, all the character interactions are great. It's funny, it's comedic, it's also serious, and you also just get some great team-ups especially with Thor and Hulk. I thought that was great. And even then, the third act, as you get the Avengers teaming up to fight an army of aliens in New York City, is just great. Where it almost feels like 9/11 is happening again, except with aliens, and you have superheroes in the mix of it. Kind of a fun idea. If the aliens didn't crash into the Twin Towers, it would have been better, though that didn't happen. But still, I absolutely loved the Avengers. Now for me, this film just absolutely does a great job of being a third Captain America film, being an Avengers movie, but also setting up so many other great stories coming forward, where you get this story of Captain America and the Avengers basically having to deal with the death of saving people. That all these times, while they have been saving people, they've also been killing some people in the process while trying to save people. And that's a unique thing where it's like, what if there's someone they need to go and they won't let us? But Tony Stark is like, I'm reckless, and I think I need to be put under this. And it's like, all the choices that Tony Stark and Captain America are making, you understand their reasonings for it. And then even then, as a Captain America film, it continues the characters of Bucky. It even brings in Ant-Man, and then, the iconic airport sequence. And then, of course, the third act where you get Iron Man, Bucky, and Captain America fighting because of the death of Tony Stark's parents. Of course, iconic, but also tragic, as it's a fight between two personal characters. And then, of course, you get the introduction of Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, and the introduction to Tom Holland as Spider-Man in the MCU. Overall, a fantastic film. So for me, this is such a great film where it deals with the loss that we dealt with in Endgame, and how do characters are trying to move on and stuff like that, and what are we trying to do and to get them back, to get that time back. And I just thought it was a great film. The time travel stuff works a little bit better for me. And then when you get to that third act, man, I mean, all the characters coming through the portals, and Captain America saying Avengers Assemble, and then just going to all-out war with all these characters, it is hell of a good time. I love Avengers Endgame. And for me, I'm just going to talk a little bit longer about this film. Not too long, but basically this film is so meaningful to me. As, you have the great concept of all these MCU characters coming together, interacting for the first time. You get to see Iron Man and Doctor Strange and Spider-Man teaming up. You get to see some of the Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy team up. You get to see some of the Avengers and the Black Panther cast team up, and all that good stuff. And it's just a great concept, but you also get a great villain in that, as the reason why they're all uniting is because they have to stop him. And it's a very interesting concept, the way they did that. And Thanos is just he's menacing, but he'll do anything to get what he wants. And the whole concept of killing half the universe so everything can be in balance, that's an interesting storyline. And the shocking part about this is, while you have all the awesome action, great humor scenes, and the way the story goes, you also got to remember, Thanos wins in the end. And what makes it even more shocking is, the last character to see die, you kill off Spider-Man, and it's one of the most emotional deaths, and it hits you like that. So that's my thoughts on the MCU ranking. That's my whole ranking. It took me a while to do this. Whew! Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. All of my social media links or my social media stuff is in the About section over there. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.